Hello and welcome back to Pravus Gaming. We are back with Neverwinter and the Scourge Warlock class. I'm level 39 now, and I'm sad to say that not a whole lot has changed. I've unlocked a lot of powers, but I'm finding they don't quite match up my playstyle. So you'll notice that my hotbar is the same pretty much as it was last time. That's fine though, I'm still going to show you what the new powers are and give you some thoughts. But first things first, I'm going to go ahead and start up a Foundry quest, because it so happens that I'm actually going through the zones a heck of a lot faster than I can level up, which is a little troublesome, but it means I have to think outside the box, so deviating from the main questing line. Alright, let's just go ahead and zip ahead, which you never should do, by the way, the Foundry quest. The difference is I've played this one before, so I know what I'm getting into. Always read through what other people have written. It's just common courtesy. You're supposed to do that. They took a lot of time writing that stuff up. Anyways, Alright, so level 39, I have chosen the Temptation Feat path for my Warlock. I did that for a couple of reasons. I'm going to go ahead and talk about that first while I get started on this quest, and then I'll show you some powers. Where am I going? Hang on a second. Koenig, I think. That's right? Okay. So as I said last time, the way I see it, there's three different trees. There's Fury, Damnation, and Temptation. Damnation I kind of wrote off as basically a solo tree. It probably has some really comparable DPS, but it does not fit my playstyle. I don't want to rely on a pet. So it really came down to Fury and Temptation. It was really difficult to choose between that. Fury has a lot of elements that interact very well with the Warlock's curse and inflict necrotic damage on your foes. And every time you do necrotic damage, you get these other bursts of power that just make you really, really, really rough and tough. So your goal is to do just as much damage as possible, but you are pretty much a glass cannon in the Fury tree, which is what I typically play, so that seemed familiar. But Temptation is the healing support tree, but that's kind of a misnomer in and of itself. And the reason being, Temptation relies very, very, very heavily on the Lifesteal stat. Pretty much you heal your party with Lifesteal. You give them some of the health that you earn for yourself, you make them get better Lifesteal, everything's really about Lifesteal. And the way the Lifesteal works is every time you do damage, you get health back. So the only way for Lifesteal to be effective, and thus the only way for your healing to really be effective, is to be doing as much damage as possible. So you may not get quite as much damage as the Fury tree, I suspect, but you still want to be doing a super high DPS, and at the same time you're providing a level of utility and support for your party, or just for yourself, that is really well synergized with clerics and with control wizards and such, and you really focus a lot more on your AoE abilities to try and hit as many targets as possible. So as far as I'm concerned, it's still a very viable DPS tree, while at the same time providing great utility. Yeah, that seemed like a good choice for me. Alright, we're gonna move through this again. Once again, I'm being rude by skipping through this, but I've done this one... Oh, there we go, look at the ghosties. I've done this one before, so I know what's coming. You don't know what's coming. If you ever play through Foundry, you read what they write. Alright, I apparently am having a hard time getting this. There we go. Oh, well that's not good. They're killing my dog! Absolutely not. Not cool. We are suffering some particle issues today, apparently. Graphical bugs. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at some of the new powers, because we all know that's what you want to see. Powers! Alright, so I buffed up Flames of Phlegethos as one of my damage dailies. I still have Accursed Souls for my own personal healing, kind of as an emergency. I'm no longer using Dark One's Blessing, although I did max it out. It was kind of useful. Instead, I picked up the new class class feature, Flames of Empowerment. Deal 8% more damage while your action points are full. Well, actually make that more like 12%. So I have a passive 12% damage buff whenever I have full action points, which it just so happens is fairly often. Because I'm the kind of person who doesn't use my daily the instant it pops up. I wait for the moment of opportunity. So in the meantime, if I can have 12% extra damage, hey, why the heck not? So that was an easy choice for me. Alright, let's pull out the Curse, Bite, and Pillar of Power. I actually am not a fan of these, but I picked them up anyway just so that I could show it to you and show what they do. So let's first look at the Curse, Bite. Deals damage to your cursed targets. That's it. I I'm pretty sure that I don't know if it targets multiple targets. I'm going to try that. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and try that right now. Let's find out if I curse multiple targets, if one use of it automatically targets all of them. Let's find out. I'm pretty sure it only is a single target ability on a curse, but let's find out. 1, 2, 3, Q. Yes, it appears to have only affected one. So we're not going to really care about that. Now let's use Pillar of Power real quick. I'm going to put that down. See this little green circle right here. Now that's, well, it basically is a bomb, kind of a mine. It explodes when your opponent runs over it. It takes a couple seconds to take effect. And then if no one runs through it, then you can stand in it to get an extra power boost. Basically, that's all it is. It empowers you. So, if we read the exact description, create a conduit of power at target location, which, by the way, you'll notice the fire damage itself is a little bit low as far as things are concerned. Anyway, create a conduit of power at target location, which erupts in a blaze of hellish flame if an enemy moves over it. The target location must gather power for at least 2 seconds before exploding. Your other powers deal increased damage while you stand in the conduit of power, and you can increase the damage it does and increase your buff. And you think, hey, that's not so bad. It's easy enough to just put something here and do some extra damage. And yeah, that would be true, except in Neverwinter, you really do have to move a lot, and I'm not really sure it's worth the animation time or waiting a couple seconds for it to take effect. And then if an enemy runs over you, it explodes, and you no longer have that damage boost, and it just becomes annoying. So I actually don't really think that Conduit of Power is worth it, but I'll use it a little bit more just to show it off. Curse Bite, I honestly think, is pretty darn worthless. Now, it would be nice, due to the fact that if you take, for example, the Fury Tree, you actually can deal out a lot of, not only the Warlock's curse, but a lot of lesser curses and such. And maybe this is useful. The problem is it just has too long of a cooldown. You know, yes, you do reduce that by an extra 2 seconds, but I would say if this were like a 3-second cooldown, for the amount of damage it does, then it'd be a pretty good power, but it's such a long cooldown, I really don't think it's worth it. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of it immediately and replace it with Harrow Storm. Let's take a look at that. This one does a lot more damage and has a really good range too. Long cooldown though. Call up a churning storm of eldritch power around the target, damaging them and enemies around them for a brief duration. Now there is a curse synergy with Harrow Storm. Applying the Warlock's curse to the main target while Harrow Storm is active will surge the storm, knocking that target into the air and leaving them prone, but ending the Harrow Storm. So basically, if you put this on a target that is not cursed yet, and then you use the curse while Harrow Storm is taking effect, they get stunned. But it ends the Harrow Storm early. So you have to decide if that's really worth it. So for example, I'm going to put a Harrow Storm on this hurler right here. Look at that. Now let's use a power. Whoops, he died a little fast. Okay, never mind. Conduit of Power, save me. Oh right, you're Conduit of Power. You're not going to save me, you're worthless. I might be in a little bit of trouble. Look at those tentacles. How cool, I guess. Oh, the Hexer. Okay, I regret this, actually. I could be in a little bit of trouble. Not gonna lie. The Harrow Storm, however, is nice. Let's apply a curse. And I think I did it too late. Alright. There we go. Come on, come on. Okay. No, don't kill him yet. Don't kill him yet. Ugh. Well, we'll try that again in just a second, shall we? Let's drink up a potion or 2 or 3, and let's apply that again. Alright, do we have a Hexer this time? Ooh, a blue item. I'll take that. So let's apply it to the Hexer. Alright, Harrow Storm. Curse. And he went flying in the air. And that's pretty much the gist of how it works. Pretty useful. Actually considered to be one of the better AoE spells for the Warlock. I actually might very well decide that I'd rather have that than Vampiric Embrace. It depends a lot. I'm thinking what'll end up happening is I'm going to keep Fiery Bolt, Dread Theft, and Harrow Storm as my main encounter abilities, and allow the massive AoE and crowd damage to do most of the healing for me. In fights like boss fights where I don't expect a lot of adds, I probably will switch out Harrow Storm in favor of Vampiric Embrace. And that will be my extra heal for the party as needed. So, let's go ahead and switch out to, let's see, Dread Theft and Fiery Bolt. Now these will be pretty much my setup. Now the last power I want to show you guys is Hellish Rebuke. It does a fair amount of fire damage, so what happens is a fiery rebuke that deals damage and ignites your targets with hellfire. If they foolishly strike you after the rebuke, the hellfire's duration will be refreshed. That's pretty nice, so it applies a dot on your target, and it actually lasts a fairly long time. You only have to apply it once, and then you can just use, in my case, Hand of Blight as your bread and butter attack at both range and melee, because it actually is pretty comparable in terms of damage, and apply Hellish Rebuke every once in a while. So here's the animation effect. I'm going to put it on this hurler. That's it. He's actually taking a reasonably good amount of damage, so as with pretty much anything, you stack that all up and you find out, hey, Hand of Blight on top of a dot, and it's actually a reasonable amount of damage. Pretty good for boss fights, honestly, and it's actually less... I guess the way I see it... Okay, here's the way I see things, right? You almost always have one at-will that you use almost for every situation, and once in a while you find, hey, there's a second at-will that I want to use for certain circumstances, but otherwise it goes kind of to waste. Well, in this case, I really can just apply it and just use my typical attack following my my natural pattern, my natural rhythm of just using one at-will instead of alternating between two. I can just apply this and just use Hand of Blight as much as I want, and then every once in a while I'll just reapply Hellish Rebuke, and it will work to maximum effect. It's like, this is easy mode. I'm cool with that. So we're gonna keep doing that, I think, in the future. So I like Hellish Rebuke. I'm gonna probably increase it with a couple more power points when I get my next chance. That's, of course, assuming I don't find anything in the next tier that I find especially interesting, which, spoiler alert, I will. Reason being, Tyrannical Threat and No Pity, No Mercy are amazing, but I will show that in the next video. Alright, the next thing I'm going to show you is the feats that I have chosen. Now, I have been hearing that I'm wrong about Blood Pact of Cania. Apparently, it's actually, the math is a little different. I'm trying to remember what it is exactly. It's like the natural boost you have for damage boost from Constitution plus Constitution minus 10 divided by 2, something like that. It sometimes ends up being, it ends up being a pretty decent amount of damage, so Blood Pact of Cania might actually not be a bad idea. So some of you might want to consider that as an option. I did put one of my extra points in Toughness because I am human, so I have 3 extra feats to work with. So at this point I have more action points, more crit chance, a little bit more hit points. You actually might want to consider taking a couple points out of Energizing Curse and putting it in Toughness if you're going to go with the Temptation route, but I'll explain more of that in a minute. I did finish off Determined Casting for encounter cooldowns because that's extremely useful, and crit severity is up by 15%. Now, when it comes to the trees, first off, I've only put my points in Temptation, so I put points into Hope Stealer. On critical hits, your Lifesteal stat is increased by 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, so 10 points per character level for 4 seconds. So by the time I'm level 60, that'll be an extra 600 lifesteal on every critical hit. That's pretty nice, and I intend on critting a lot. Good charisma means lots of crit. I passed on Vengeful Curse. When damaged, you have a chance to apply a lesser curse on your target. First off, I really would rather not be hit by things very much, so I just kind of passed on that. Alright, now one of the Paragon powers I have, and I haven't even talked about my Paragon. Goodness, there's a lot to cover in this episode. Paragon power, Hellish Condemnation. Targets affected by your Hellish Rebuke at will deal less damage. That's actually not half bad, maybe not best. I didn't go with it. But if you max this out, you can basically apply your Hellish Rebuke on, for example, a boss, and it'll do less damage to the party. That's not bad. 5% less damage is nothing to sneeze at. But it's not where I put my points. Instead, I chose Compounded Soul. Striking a cursed foe has a chance to grant 5% of the Warlock's max HP as temporary hit points to allies near the Warlock. Yes, my max HP, and I should have a lot because I'm going to have very high Constitution, goes out to the party. Hence why Toughness is actually pretty useful for the Temptation tree, and I might want to consider respecking and putting more points in Toughness. The next tier I haven't touched yet, but they're both quite good. Aura of Despair and Aura of Cruelty. Enemies within 20 feet of me deal less damage. It's basically very similar to Paragon Power, but I don't even have to use Hellish Rebuke, so this is always better. And Aura of Cruelty, allies within 20 feet of you, Lifesteal for 5% more. Also pretty darn nice. We'll worry about some of the rest of these feats later, but I like these a lot, so we'll see what happens with that in the future. You'll notice, by the way, I am a Hellbringer. That is my Paragon because that is currently the only Paragon available for the Scourge Warlock. Hopefully at some point soon they'll release a second one. I'd be shocked if they didn't, but that's your only option. So I don't really feel like there's much point in discussing all of the different Paragon powers, because you're going to see those anyway based on this, and there's really no comparison to be made because there is no other alternative. So that's pretty much all there is to it. Okay. Excuse me, just a little water break there. Right, well, I'm trying to think, is there anything I've missed? There is actually one thing I could tell you about the Warlock. The Warlock does have its own personal series of quests. Every class does, technically, but they're usually very odds and ends, kind of boring jobs. The Warlock actually does have a fairly interesting story. Apparently, you made an infernal pact with Belial, the demonic lord of Phlegethos, which is one of the 9 hells, I believe. So he's a super powerful demon lord, and he's empowering you. And your entire goal... Oops, I appear to be taking damage from wolves. Okay, hang on a second. There we go. Anyways, I got distracted. Anyway, Belial gives you a lot of powers, but you're pretty much the terms of your pact is just to, give forth suffering, deal that out to anybody, really. And you could do that to the internet, to anyone. But your character has decided you want to play the hero, and quite frankly, Belial did not specify that they had to be good people that you are hurting, so you can just apply your fury to evildoers, like I am right now, and that actually will satisfy Belial, and it does. And you actually do meet Belial at some point, and you do get to make what I would consider one of the first instances of a real moral choice in the game, as you can choose whether or not you want to betray somebody who's been helping you through your quest line. It's actually quite interesting. So it's pretty fun, actually, to have your own quest line. The difference is I really, really, really wish that they gave me the option to be properly chaotic evil, but they did not. So, still, good story, worth considering. When you're creating a character, if you like having fun and kind of role-playing a little bit, that's the basic gist of your character. You have the powers of a demon lord based on your infernal pact, and instead of afflicting those powers on the innocent, you have chosen to be the hero and inflict it upon the evildoers, and frankly, Belial's okay with that as long as somebody's suffering. Alright, well, I think that's about everything that I want to cover in this episode, so I'm going to continue leveling up, hopefully get to around level 50, and then I'll come back and show you the Tyrannical Threat, No Pity, No Mercy, and maybe these last couple of abilities here. We'll see how that works out. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Pravus with Pravus Gaming, and I will see you guys next time.